Today, we are diving into one of history's most incredible and honestly most deliberate character assassinations. We're going to trace the journey of the Roman goddess Diana to see how a figure of light was systematically turned into a creature of darkness. So, how does this even happen? I mean, really, how does a beloved goddess, a protector, get rebranded as a feared demon? That's the question we're tackling. It's a story about belief, power, and the art of rewriting history itself. And here's our roadmap. First, we'll meet Diana as the goddess of light. Then we'll watch as a shadow falls over her legacy. We'll see her become the queen of the night. And we'll even meet a Germanic parallel called the Furious Host. Then we'll see how it all gets mixed together to forge the witch's Sabbath. And finally, we'll talk about why this myth endures. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. In the ancient world, Diana was anything but scary. She was a powerhouse, a deeply respected deity, and a pillar of the Olympian pantheon. First and foremost, you have to understand that Diana was a sovereign. She was the dignified ruler of the natural world, the goddess of the moon, the hunt, the wild places. She really embodied this powerful, untamed, independent spirit. And this is crucial. She was a protector, but not just of anything. She was specifically the guardian of the marginalized, of slaves, and of women in the vulnerable moments of childbirth. She was a beacon for those living on the edges of Roman society. So you get the picture, right? The light of the moon, a symbol of self-reliance, a guide for people at a crossroads in their lives. This is the noble, powerful figure we're starting with. Lock that image in your mind because her story is about to take a very, very dark turn. And here it is. This is the moment everything changes. The spread of Christianity across Europe brings with it a totally new worldview, one that has no room for the old gods as they were. A systematic reinterpretation begins. And the strategy was brilliant, in a way. The goal wasn't just to ignore the old gods, it was to actively demonize them. Church authorities started recasting these once-loved figures as deceptive spirits, as demonic traps designed to lead good people astray. So why Diana? Why was she singled out with such intensity? Well, it came down to two things that made the new religious authorities deeply uncomfortable: her connection to powerful women and her domain over the night. That combo made her a prime target. And this just created a massive shift in how people saw her. What were once considered sacred nighttime rituals in her honor, all of a sudden they were being reframed as sinful, demonic hallucinations. Her entire form of worship was declared dangerous and wrong. All right, let's jump forward into the Middle Ages because this is where her transformation goes into overdrive. This wasn't just some theological debate anymore. It was spilling out into folklore, creating a brand new, much darker archetype for Diana. She becomes the archetypal witch queen. Now think about it. The core elements are still there: a powerful female leader, a following of women, and gatherings at night. But now the meaning is completely inverted. This new story taps into a deep cultural fear of feminine power that operates outside of the new rules. And of course, as her identity was twisted, her symbols were twisted right along with it. The very things that once defined her as a noble goddess were turned into something sinister. For instance, get this: the bow and arrows of the huntress, a symbol of skill and independence, becomes the magical wand of a witch, a tool of dark, forbidden, occult knowledge. Her power was no longer divine, it was now demonic. Now, to really understand what's happening to Diana's story, we actually have to take a little detour up north. Because at the same time, in the Germanic parts of Europe, a very similar but also very different myth was thundering across the night sky. I'm talking about the Wild Hunt, led by the god Woden, who you might know as Odin. He was the god of war and death, and he led this ghostly host of fallen warriors across the sky. For the people on the ground, this myth was a way to explain the raw, terrifying power of a winter storm. But here's where it gets really interesting. When you put these two nocturnal processions side by side, you see a huge difference, and it's all about gender. Woden's hunt, led by a male god, is seen as martial, violent, almost heroic. But Diana's society, led by a woman, that's framed as mysterious, subversive, a spiritual sisterhood instead of an army of the dead. See the double standard? So you've got these two huge myths running in parallel, one Roman, one Germanic. What happens when they finally collide in a Europe that is gripped by religious fear? Well, they merge. and they create something far more terrifying than either one was on its own. It's almost like a recipe for a monster. You start with Diana's nocturnal flights. You add the roaring fury of Woden's wild hunt. You filter it all through this intense lens of cultural and religious anxiety, and what comes out the other side is the singular, terrifying legend of the witch's Sabbath. And this synthesis is what made the legend so potent. Inquisitors could now take all these different local pagan customs from all over Europe and weave them into one unified story of a massive demonic conspiracy. Figures like Diana and Woden just became interchangeable managers of the same evil operation. Wow. So we followed this incredible path from sovereign goddess to feared demon. But what should we actually take away from this story? What does it all mean? Here's the key. The story of Diana's transformation isn't really about what was real. It's about what people believed. Her journey is like a historical record, written in the language of myth, that shows us how a dominant culture can absorb, twist, and repurpose the beliefs it wants to replace. It's a fascinating, if dark story, of cultural transformation. And that leaves us with one final thought. This process of reinterpreting and rewriting powerful narratives, it didn't end in the Middle Ages. It's happening all the time. So it's worth asking ourselves, what powerful stories, figures, or ideas are being transformed right before our very eyes today?